Good afternoon. We are here today with Sister Beatrice Aluda from Kenya, and she just wrote a big thesis, a doctoral thesis, called The Protection of the Rights of the Child According to the International Law of Human Rights, the Case of Kenya. And I thought this was a very interesting, very pertinent thesis in light of what is happening in the world today. Because of what is happening in the world today, I'm going to first give a little bit of a background, a large vision of the world, and then I will have Sister then emphasize and look at how this applies to the situation in Kenya, specifically with the abuse of children. Last Thursday here in Rome, Sophia Kubi wrote a presentation, presented a speech, I should say rather, entitled An Orphan's Freedom, Global Governance and the Failure of the International Human Rights Project, with a question mark. So what Sister presents here is related to this, because Sister talks about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 and shows how this is a result of the Second World War and how we were trying to safeguard the rights of human nature. But what Sophia Kubi indicates in her presentation is that in the end there is a clash of worldviews at stake here. And the first worldview is a humanistic worldview, a personalistic philosophy, and the other is a materialistic Marxist worldview. So when you have that sort of clash, what happens? And that's what we're encountering today. It's like, and that's what Sister is dealing with, is how the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is really not being implemented the way that it ought to be, because there is a big question on who the human being is. As Jacques Maritain said, we agree on these rights, basic human rights and freedoms, but on condition that no one asks us why. So it's, what is the human person in the end? And nobody wants to touch that specific topic, but that is the main topic. As Sophia Kubi stresses, there is indeed a disagreement over the human person, which is then reflected in jurisprudence. And I will highlight some of the things that she talked about in her talk. She emphasized how we live in a situation right now when this is becoming most evident, because it is one of the most sophisticated global governance mechanisms that we've ever had because of technology. And Sister will be discussing this as well, the role of technology in the midst of all this. So that we cannot think anymore that what's happening in the United States, what's happening in Europe, what's happening in Latin America, what's happening in Africa is distinct, is separate. There is indeed a network, because of the internet, that is really globalizing everyone, globalizing the children, globalizing the fact that the children are now acting pretty much the same all across the board. It's very interesting to hear what Sister has to say and what Sister has to write about in this thesis, because you see that there is indeed a globalization effect. And Sophia Kubi stresses, that while we have this sophisticated global governance, we fail to solve any of the pressing, deep problems of our world today. She stresses war, mass migration, financial crises, corruption, erosion of freedom, the role of law, the attack of human dignity, and the individual as a free agent within a public order that is conducive to the common good. We see all of this, she summarizes, fragmentation and fierce confrontation of worldviews. At the heart of this confrontation is the question, who is man? That's really at the heart of the question. And with this question, Kubi emphasizes that we touch the core of the cultural divide in the West today, which affects the world, essentially. And it's at the same time the root cause of the crisis of our global governance system, affecting the world, as I said. When you ask the question, Kubi continues, what it is that we want to defend through our global governance institutions, you get vague answers, some mumbling human rights, values, freedom, but you will probably not get a clear vision of what it is that we want to preserve and hold on to, nor will you get any compelling reason why our modern human rights approach is better than the Chinese Communist Party, for instance. And then Kubi emphasizes that the problem at heart on the question of what is man is that we live in what Charles Taylor calls the disenchantment of the secular age. It is a religious question at heart. She emphasizes that this disenchantment world is devoid of two things in Taylor's works. She emphasizes how the first thing is it's devoid of the understanding that the world is more than matter and filled with spirits. That there is meaning in the cosmos, and as a consequence in the physical world as we see it. Without spirit, without meaning, what is it that we live for? That's what materialism is all about. It's not about consumerism. It's about a vision of the world that is disenchanted, that has no imagination, that has no spiritual dimension, that is all just matter. Positivism. Sister discusses this as well when she emphasizes how we have to educate the youth. You can't educate the youth just on materialism. You can't eliminate the enchantment of life. And at one point, Kubi emphasizes, that ideas have consequences, and all these negative ideas, all these positivistic ideas of man that you read in people like Huxley, you get bad consequences. Really emphasizing what Richard Weaver says when he says ideas have consequences, have moral consequences. And so, Kubi continues, in our global governance systems, we take the rights of human rights and replace the human with whatever subjective definition occurs to someone. A logical consequences of the absence of any higher meaning in the cosmos. And this definition says that human means an identity unrelated to our gendered body. Then this disincarnate nebulous self claims human rights for itself. So the clash is not new, but it is intensified. From the very beginning of the International Human Rights Project, Kubi continues, two competing visions of man confronted each other. The one of Julius Huxley, the Soviet Union, communist mainland China, which is an atheist materialistic view, and the other one, the personalist vision, represented by Jacques Maritain, Charles Malick, and other Western liberal democracies. And so then she emphasizes this, how all of this, then has its consequences, as we see in abortion, divorce, pornography, euthanasia, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, artificial procreation, surrogacy, eugenics. All these practices that were forbidden some decades ago have now become rights or quasi-rights. What is forbidden today instead is to criticize them, Kubi stresses. Because you see, when you don't have a moral compass, when you don't have an ontological moral compass, because you don't have God in the middle anymore, and the God that is the God of Abraham, the Christian God, the God fully revealed by Jesus Christ, it's obvious that in the end you're not going to have an agreement on what there is. What we have is is this lack of imagination, this lack of the myth, this lack of 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 the of what is beyond. We have instead a very mathematical, positivistic view that doesn't allow us to see reality beyond an existential, beyond the existential realm that we see around us, and the consequences of that is that whereas at one time everything had meaning, now nothing has meaning. Now everything is relativistic. Now everything is just the same. In a situation like this, because as we know, metaphysics affects morality, and in a situation like this, there is no way to defend why, abortion, divorce, pornography, euthanasia, homosexuality, same-sex marriage, artificial procreation, all these things are wrong if you don't have a metaphysical basis for this. If you don't have something that goes beyond the positivistic reality that we live in, beyond the scientism that is so common today. Kubi emphasizes that this scientism and all this positivistic worldview is secularization, which is typical of what Charles Taylor emphasizes. Secularization removed man's identity and his dignity as a creature, a son, to give him instead the infinite liberty of orphans. And what's interesting here is that if you study simple fables, fairy tales, you realize that that has always been the fear of children, to remain orphans. Because when you're an orphan, you are vulnerable to everything. But that is what our society is becoming, a society of orphans. And this, Sophia Kubi's discourse is very appropriate. The rejection of God at the basis of all this, as the origin of man, leads to destruction of the understanding of the personalist and Christian ontology. If man is not created by a good God, he has no choice but to liberate himself from the straitjacket of everything he has not chosen with his will. Kubi continues, all the new rights are rights of the will over the body. They guarantee man the exercise of his power over the body. And this new type of human rights doesn't aim at justice, but at power, which is what we're seeing more and more of today. And so, with all of this, I would like to summarize that basically, desire itself has acquired a normative status. That what is arbitrary desire has become a right. And in such a context, what happens to the most vulnerable in society? And that's where Sister Beatrice comes in and introduces her topic.
The title of my work is The Protection of the Rights of the Child According to the International Law of Human Rights, the case of Kenya. 4 main general principles are guiding the rights of the child from the Convention of the Rights of the Child. Non-discrimination, Article 2. Children's best interest, Article 3. Right to life, survival and development, Article 6. Right to be heard, Article 12. The concept of childhood has notably and most regrettably changed over time the world over. In Africa, for instance, children continue to experience wild reception and treatment not just from strangers and hired caretakers, but also from their relatives and most pathetically from their parents. It is as though they are unavoidable but welcome visitors in our times. This wild reception and treatment have continued to happen unbatedly, despite the numerous local legislations and the rights advocacy campaigns staged in global forums, going to the main unreported incidents of inhuman and archaic treatment according to the modern child. This very child is no longer a welcome gift from God, but rather an intruder who comes when least wanted and hardly invited, and hence the treatment.
What's interesting about this, sister, is that the legislation, positivistic law, is not going to change things. I think that's what you're showing here.
Yes.
Just because you have articles in the Constitution or laws or whatever, if there isn't a change of heart, if that's the culture and the heart is not changed and formed in a certain direction, thinking a certain way, you're just gonna get the results that we see today. So yeah, basically, it's not just laws that are going to protect us.
The society has to be transformed.
Society has to be transformed,
Yes.
and that happens one by one in the family.
Yes, beginning from the family.
So, so would you like to? I don't know. Please continue with how would you like to continue with all this?
Since the topic is about the church in the human rights, the child abuse in Kenya, just a bit from the local church, the church promotes, we have the small Christian communities, the church promotes good family, good society, and good Christians. So from that one, the church calls the society to work together in order to protect the children. But we have seen that the problem of the child in Kenya has three main causes. The first one, the culture of silence. This is the main problem in Kenya, culture of silence. Because starting from the traditional African aspect, the people were not able to talk about that. So we see that in the society in Kenya, mostly the children are abused, but it's not because the people say, but they have this problem of the culture of silence. They cannot say because they say that one is solved in the society. When the child is abused in the family, maybe the father can abuse the child, but it is solved in the family level. They don't take it to the government. And then there's also the corruption. The corruption which is from the government. Like, for example, the government, they don't teach the people the constitution. Most people, like the women, they don't know their rights. So the constitution is there. They know that it's renewed, but who went to teach the people there? The women in the village, they are not taught about the constitution. They don't know their rights. So they just keep quiet, and they try to solve the problems by themselves. And then also the media, that is the technology. It's not only the parents or the society which abuse the people, but even the children themselves. From the formal education, they have learned the things which even the parents themselves, they cannot understand. So you see that the children of nowadays, they have learned to kill, they have learned to abuse even the age mates, they abuse other children. And then the parents who have no knowledge about technology, they think that the children are learning, because even there in Africa, it seems maybe the people, they don't know that, but the children are also learning things on technology. So the parents see the children learning things on computer, but they don't take.
They don't know what it is that they're learning.
Yeah, they don't know. They think that the children are studying, but the children learn many things and they abuse themselves. Like if you go to primary school, you hear that the children have done even abortion, and you wonder. And in the African tradition, this did not exist.
So this is the astounding revelation of your thesis, is that yes. We in Europe, we think that in Africa there still is respect for natural law and all these different things, all these great elements, more traditional society. But we're discovering is that because of technology, in Africa, even in Africa, this is becoming
a problem.
A problem.
If the people go back to the African tradition, it was very good, because the children were taught. We had this in passage of life, the initiation light, So to get mature, to get married, it was not according to the age, but to the age groups, because usually they were taught in a group, so that was their age. It was not how old you are, but the group which they grew up together, being taught how to be good women, how to clean the house, all those things they were taught. So once they passed that initiation right, the passage of life, they knew already what they are going to do, even if they get married as young girls, but they were already prepared.
Exactly.
But the society of nowadays in Kenya, the woman has changed. The children has become burden for them, no? They want to look maybe beauty like that. They don't want even to take care of the children because maybe they are working. Before, the African woman was just to stay at home, do this domestic work like that. But the modern woman goes to the office to work, so they have no time for the children. So you find that the children also, even if they abuse themselves, they are those parents who are the first ones. They don't even know what their children are doing, no? So it becomes a big problem. But according to our study, if the people go back to the African tradition, the children can be helped. And also this culture of silence has to be solved, because they have to learn how to say that my child was abused. They have to take the precaution, because the government, when the parents go to accuse that person, they take the necessary precaution, but the problem, they don't know. They don't go forward to say what problem the children are facing. So even if the woman is abused, there are some who are coming out, but it's not all of them. So this culture of silence has to be changed. That is
the culture of silence, though, is a culture that's part of the tradition.
Yes.
It's part of also the village tradition.
Yes, yeah.
But it's now, the problem is combining that with urbanization, because urbanization is a big problem in the end.
Yes.
These big cities where there's a lot of what Durkheim would call anonymity, the sense of the anonymous.
Yeah.
If you have that in the cities, then that's a bad combination. Silence with anonymity is a problem. That's something that we can summarize. And so I think the way to solve this is to create small groups, even within cities.
Yes.
To return to a sort of the good things of tradition and bring it into small groups, because that's what Durkheim also talks about in his studies in the 19th century, is that you can create in cities small units. Oh, you don't even have to work too hard to create it. I mean, in most cities there are small neighborhoods.
And then there's this, even if the child, everything has positive and negative side. Even though they were married, prepared, but nowadays with the formal education, the government encourages those people who are found marrying the children underage. They are taken to court. Why they don't let the child to go to school? So it's against the law, according to the constitution. The children have to be given the right to study. So once they find that those children are they're getting married, it's not right like that. So they have to be taken back to school now. So even those who are part of the government, which they're doing, even those who are following the international law, no? Those children who have already failed, they are taken even back to school. But there's still a problem there, because with the corruption also in the government, you see that, for example, when we have these campaigns, when they have election for electing the president, they use even the young people. So the young people, they are used to kill people. So this is also another problem there. So
What is
education.
What's the church doing in the middle of all this?
Usually the church, there are some documents which I put, they call the campaigns, they call all the people, they call them and they educate them how they should not accept corruption. They should stand firm as Catholic, faithful, not to accept that corruption from the government, because sometimes they give them money, but that money is only for some time. When they finish, and then what will they do? Even if they kill the other people, those people in the government, they continue with their life, but the simple people...
Exactly, it's the abuse of the pure.
They burn the house, they lose everything.
It's the abuse of the poor.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah, because this one is also connected with poverty.
Exactly.
So the poor people, they accept whatever, no? Whatever they ask them, important they get money, and that is not right.
It's something that is being seen more and more in the world today. The small minority of very, very rich people governing the masses. And you see this, it's really interesting. You see this actually emphasized in Netflix. There's this very popular show called The Squid Game that comes from Korea. And in it, you see these super rich elites playing games that are very real and very deleterious for the poor, because they're bored. And what I think what we have to emphasize as the church is this emphasize that this is an abuse, that this is wrong, and that society that has an extreme amount of very poor people.
For example, we have even the street children. We have many, they say that in Kenya has the majority, a big number of the street children, but these street children, they have different groups.
Of course,
there are those who are
groups.
born on the streets, and those who go to the street and they go back to their family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What I think in general, in terms of government, we have to remember that the concept of subsidiarity, and again, this emphasizes what Durkheim was saying about the local. The local government, the local church, the local family, the local, that protects. And if something is too wide, there's a lot of difficulty in governing and implementing things on a local level.
The Catholic Church in Kenya, we have the small Christian community and the CWA, that is the Catholic Women Association.
Yes.
And the Men Catholic Men Association. So like when I went for research, that one is very important, because when you educate those women, they do a lot. From the experience we have seen that they do a lot, they do more than the men, because men, they need cash for the Catholic men education. If they don't have money, they don't go ahead. But the women, when you educate those women, even from nothing, they do a lot.
The women are very
They start
important.
small business, and even from that group, that is from which the church has done this, it's everywhere in all the dioceses. So from the Catholic women education, they are even able to educate the children to help, because what they do, they don't only stay there and read the Bible. They say if that one woman has no money, they contribute, they give that person. So they help like that, and by that, they even help to educate children, they build a house like that, many things. So that is the also positive part which the Kenyan church is doing.
Very good, very good. And emphasizing and helping women, because women, you know, the definition of woman is wife of man. The role, the woman is a mother.
Yes.
The woman is a mother, and by being a mother, she protects her own, and she gets very creative about how she's going to protect her children.
Yes.
So the role of women in educating women, I'm glad you emphasized that, because the more you educate, the more good you do for women, essentially.
It changes the society.
It changes the society.
Yeah. So the education in Kenya is very wide. You have to look at it at a very wide point.
Of course.
Yeah.
But also the role of men is important.
Yeah,
I mean, you
even
do have to
women
you have
also,
to educate men to be good
Yeah.
fathers.
Yeah.
Which brings me to the point about marriage. Marriage, one can say, is really good to help
Yeah.
both men and women, but it emphasizes the marriage provides a house, provides a habitat
Yes.
for the woman to protect her children, to have her children, you know. And so, in the end, you have to help both the men and the women.
Yeah, in
the
fact,
end.
from this
Educating well the men to be good husbands and to be protective of their women. And the role of marriage. Could you emphasize something on the role of marriage?
Yeah, in fact, from this to association, many, even those who are not in the church, they have come back to the church. They have also reconciled with their family, and they got married in their family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this emphasizes and shows us
Yes.
the importance of marriage and family.
Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned something in your thesis also about marriage, a woman having to be married out very early. Is this I mean, women emphasizing how they need to get married, and the women, that's what their role in the family is. Is this this is a positive thing traditionally, but today you showed how it could
Yeah.
also be negative.
Yeah. Because
negative
now,
side of that.
because now the life has changed. Because what I see the problem in Kenya from technology, not even the children, even the women, they are trying to live like the
Like
women
men.
in Europe.
Oh, like the women in Europe.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So but only the difference that they have children. Some of them, they have children. So this is the difference. Those working women, they don't mind but the most important, they take care of their children. No? But for me, it was more better than in the African tradition. even though the disadvantage is there because they were beating maybe the women, but at least the women were responsible for the children. They could not distract the family because in the African tradition, the children are a blessing from God. So once, if women were married, there was no woman without children, it was like genocide. I think you read that one, which I said, a woman who doesn't bring children to the world, she's blocking the creation. She cannot continue with the creation. So all the women had to get worried.
This is not just an African tradition, by the way. This is also European tradition.
Even here, even nowadays, even if they are changing, but there's something which remains. Those, if you read many from the newspaper, even the television, there's this kidnapping of the children.
Yes, you mentioned that. Yeah.
It's not only because they do bad things to them, but sometimes they kidnap the children because they don't have
children.
Yeah, this is the new reality in the society now.
So who's kidnapping the children?
There are a group of small women, some people, no? They get money because these women who don't have children, they want children. So they kidnap even those street children. They give money and they take them because they realize that the family is very important. So they want to have a family without children. It's not complete.
It's not complete,
yeah. So there's also
the problem is there a problem of infertility in Africa as well?
Yes, there's also this.
A growing problem of infertility. What do you think is it related to?
That one also was caused with this circumcision of women. Partly was caused with circumcision of women.
Yes.
But that one, the woman was born infertile like that. There was a way how to do it. That is why the polygamy comes in.
Yes.
Because the woman will allow the husband to get another woman so that he can bear the children to that husband.
Yes.
And she considered that one the children also has.
Yeah.
But it is also caused with this circumcision, which those who are circumcised before, this is abusing the women's right when they were young.
So this element of circumcision is a problem. Is also a problem. Tradition in a sense.
Yes, traditional. But
tradition is not good on this point for circumcision of women, because you're realizing that it's not good for women to be circumcised. Yeah.
But also the church and the government has worked on it. Like for example, if you go now to some of the churches, they educate the young boys and the girls together. But they don't allow the girls to be circumcised because they have seen that the body of the girl is destroyed.
Exactly. It's not
when they get
anymore.
married, they cannot have children.
Yeah.
But the boy is okay. They teach them everything together. So they invite the priest, the advocate for the children, and then also the psychologist. So they put all of them together. They give education to these children. After they give them certificate. They give the children certificate, but the girls are not circumcised. So they don't practice that, but it still needs process because it cannot be done in one day. They still have to work on it. Mm-hmm. And also they go to those remote areas, to educate people. It's those who are in the village, they are the ones who are experiencing a lot. But nowadays, if you go, you find like the Maasai, they already know that their girls, because what they do, they take a video and they show to those men in the video how the reaction of the real act when they were circumcising the girls. So they let the men to see. That is what has changed also the society. Mm. Yeah. So they let them to see the effect, how the girls feel. Mm. So with that one, they change because they realize that they have also destroyed their child. And also they realize that after circumcision, some of the girls, they say that now we are already big. They get married themselves before. So it's no longer good. But it still needs time.
It still needs time.
Yeah.
So overall, what is your conclusion?
So the conclusion of this, I think we need to have education. Even in the school, the teachers, mm-hmm. the parents, they have to get this education, mm-hmm. because that is where the children are left most of the time. Mm-hmm. I think in everywhere, the children stays more in the school than with the parents, mm-hmm. because at home the parents go to work. So there is also this abuse of child in the school.
In the school,
so the teachers and the managers, they have to be taught how to handle the children, mm-hmm. because you find that the children are also abused in school. Mm-hmm. And also there's also another problem you find that when, for example, a girl get pregnant, the boy continues with the education. That is also still a
Yes,
question
you mentioned
mark.
that. Yes.
Yeah, it is still a question mark.
Yeah.
This boy, if they punish the girl, the boy also has to take. They have to take precautions so that the boy will learn that it is not right for them to make pregnant the girls before time. No, because they continue with the education, and what
And
about
they're doing this out of wedlock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is not okay also.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So there are things which are, and there's also something which was another abuse for the children, this of beating of children. Mm-hmm. It was so much in the school, you find that even there are children who are banned in the school, no? Mm-hmm. So they say that if the government abolish this beating of the children, corporal punishment, it doesn't serve, because even though they have put it in the constitution, but how are the reaction? From the African mentality, people still beat the children. You find that if a child steals something from home, the parent will take that child to the police station and they will allow the child to be beaten there, but which is not right. No? So they have to find a way. Is it corporal punishment? Is it positive or no? If they abolish it, how is it? Because now some they say they return it because the children are no longer performing well in school, because they are left free. No, the education there in Kenya is almost now like here, because the children are left free. They don't. They are not like before. No. Yeah.
So we need to work on Catholic education.
Yeah, and even the children themselves, they have to be educated, because the media, they have to control the telephone, these things. The children are they go to us with that one, because they learn many things which were not there. You imagine a child of 9 years kill another one. That is it sounds strange, but it's happening, because they have learned to do many things which are not good. So it is also the responsibility of the parents to educate the children, to see what they are seeing in the media, and also to talk to them about sex education, how they should handle themselves.
Yeah, not leave that in the hands of the governments.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's again we go back to subsidiarity. You go back to local, focusing on the individual family and the local. Yeah. I think that no. Thank you. This is enlightening, because
and
it's
in
showing.
conclusion, the church also insisted with the commission which the Pope.
Yes, you mentioned this commission of
the
protection of children, but also the Congregation for Catholic Education, and the importance of the transcendental, the transcendental dimension of life.
So the best thing here, what the church in Kenya has done, all the institutes which have the children, like the religious, all of them, they have to learn sex education. That is what they rule now. Any house, they have to control.
The Kenyan government?
No, the church.
Oh, the church,
yeah,
okay.
All the institutions. They said that if those religious, even before the religious was not learning this, so the bishop decided that that even the religious women, they have to learn what is sex education. Because if they don't understand this, how will they help the children?
How will they be able to fight all the perversions that are?
For example,
around,
if you go to these policies about the child protection, which is done with the
come from the CDF.
So all the houses in the religious houses which they have children home, they need to have it. Yeah. That is one step which you have done too.
But what kind of sex education are they doing? They're just basically learning what's out there, right? It's an awareness of what's happening.
They do, they call a conference with all the religions, then they invite one priest. Yeah.
To talk about all the different things that are happening in society.
Yeah.
The aberrations
that is what they do.
all.
So when they
because there's almost this is interesting, because this is almost something that is a generational gap. I find myself unable to, I'm surprised by what's happening to the two generations after me. I mean, I'm surprised to hear some of the things that 10-year-olds know today that when I was 10 years old, I would never have known. So I think it's good for us to be aware as well as educators.
That's what they do. They invite all the religious from different communities. Then they invite one priest, the lawyer for the children. So at least once in a year, they do twice. Yeah.
to be aware.
Yeah. To be aware of what is
happening.
Yeah.
That's very important, especially Kathy. In that sense, I understand. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I would be aware of the risks of technology and all of that. There's a lot of work to be done, sister.
So all of them, they have to work together: the church, the government, the parents, and the children.
There's a lot of work.
People,
A lot of work.
Yeah,
to be
because
done.
one side will not work. They
Exactly.
need all of them to work.
Exactly.
Together. Yeah.
Thank you, sister. And
Okay.
I hope that this has been good to be able to integrate all these different themes together. I hope that we've made some sense out of it. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you very much.